What does not kill me makes me stronger. These words, perhaps more than any others, capture the essence of a philosophical perspective that stands in stark opposition to the fundamental assumptions of modern life. The thinker who penned this famous declaration spent his intellectual career investigating a troubling paradox: that the very conditions which make life pleasant and secure might simultaneously undermine the qualities that make life meaningful and humans capable of greatness. His analysis penetrated to the heart of what he saw as a fundamental tension between comfort and excellence, between safety and strength, between the desire for ease and the development of human potential. This was not mere intellectual speculation, but a lived investigation, conducted by someone whose own life embodied the struggles he described, whose personal battles with illness, isolation, and misunderstanding informed his understanding of how adversity shapes character, and how its absence might diminish it. The philosophical framework that emerged from this investigation challenges us to reconsider our most basic assumptions about what constitutes a good life and what conditions are most likely to produce flourishing human beings. At the core of this analysis lies a psychological insight about the relationship between challenge and development that extends far beyond individual experience to encompass entire civilizations. The observation that comfort tends to breed weakness while hardship cultivates strength appears throughout human history and across multiple domains of experience. Physical training provides the most obvious example. Muscles grow stronger only when subjected to resistance. Bones become denser only under stress. Cardiovascular systems improve only when pushed beyond their current capacity. Remove these challenges, and the opposite occurs. Muscles atrophy. Bones become brittle, fitness declines. This principle of use it or lose it applies not merely to physical capabilities, but to psychological, moral, and intellectual capacities as well. The mind that is never challenged loses its sharpness. The character that never faces adversity remains undeveloped. The spirit that encounters no obstacles fails to discover its own strength. This insight led to a broader analysis of how different social conditions affect human development, and what types of environments are most likely to produce individuals capable of creativity, leadership, and moral excellence. The investigation revealed that periods of ease and prosperity, while pleasant to live through, often coincide with cultural decline and the emergence of what might be called decadent values, attitudes that prioritize comfort over achievement, safety over adventure, equality over excellence, and immediate pleasure over long-term development. This analysis was not motivated by sadistic pleasure in others, suffering, or romantic nostalgia for imagined golden ages, but by a genuine concern for human potential and a recognition that the elimination of all struggle and difficulty might paradoxically diminish, rather than enhance, human flourishing. The concept of decadence that emerges from this framework refers not to moral corruption in any conventional sense, but to a specific configuration of values and attitudes that arise in societies that have achieved high levels of material prosperity and security. Decadent cultures, according to this analysis, are characterized by several identifiable features: a preference for comfort over challenge, an emphasis on rights and entitlements rather than duties and responsibilities, a focus on avoiding pain rather than pursuing meaningful goals, a tendency toward egalitarianism that discourages excellence and achievement, and a general softening of character that makes individuals and societies vulnerable to both internal dissolution and external threats. These are not necessarily conscious choices, but rather the predictable psychological and social consequences of living in environments that have successfully eliminated most sources of hardship and struggle. The analysis suggests that what we typically consider progress, the reduction of suffering, the increase of material comfort, the expansion of leisure time, the democratization of luxury, may have unintended consequences that undermine the very qualities that made such progress possible in the first place. Historical examples support this perspective across multiple civilizations and time periods. The decline of ancient Athens coincided with its achievement of unprecedented wealth and cultural sophistication. The fall of Rome occurred not during its periods of external threat and internal struggle, but after it had achieved dominance over the known world, and its citizens had grown accustomed to bread and circuses, rather than civic virtue and military excellence. Similar patterns appear in the history of other great civilizations. Periods of challenge and hardship often coincide with cultural flowering and achievement, while eras of ease and prosperity frequently precede decline and collapse. This historical pattern suggests that the relationship between comfort and weakness operates not only at the individual level but at the societal level as well, with implications for how we think about progress, development, and the conditions most likely to promote long-term human flourishing. The psychological mechanisms underlying this relationship between comfort and weakness operate through several interconnected pathways. First, the absence of challenge eliminates opportunities for individuals to discover and develop their capabilities. Human potential remains largely unknown until it is tested against obstacles and difficulties. Without such tests, people may live their entire lives unaware of what they might have achieved under different circumstances. Second, comfortable conditions reduce the motivation for growth and self-improvement. When basic needs are easily satisfied and life proceeds smoothly, there is little incentive to develop new skills, take risks, or push beyond current limitations. Third, the elimination of hardship can lead to what might be called psychological atrophy, a weakening of mental and emotional capabilities that parallels the physical atrophy that occurs in unused muscles. The capacity for persistence, resilience, courage, and self-discipline must be regularly exercised to remain strong, and comfortable conditions provide few opportunities for such exercise. Fourth, easy living can create unrealistic expectations about life and relationships, leading to fragility when inevitable difficulties do arise. People accustomed to having their needs met without effort may be poorly equipped to handle situations that require sustained struggle, or the acceptance of unavoidable suffering. The analysis of how comfort breeds weakness extends beyond individual psychology to encompass social and cultural dynamics. Societies that prioritize comfort and security above all other values tend to develop institutional structures that reinforce these priorities, creating what might be called cultures of ease that systematically discourage the development of excellence and strength. Educational systems in such societies often emphasize self-esteem and emotional comfort over intellectual challenge and academic achievement. Economic systems prioritize consumption and leisure over production and investment. Political systems focus on providing services and benefits, rather than encouraging civic responsibility and participation. Cultural institutions celebrate mediocrity and accessibility, rather than excellence and achievement. These institutional arrangements may be well-intentioned, and may indeed reduce certain forms of suffering, but they can also create environments that fail to develop human potential, and may actually undermine the qualities necessary for long-term societal health and individual fulfillment. The critique of comfort culture does not advocate for unnecessary suffering or the romanticization of hardship for its own sake. The point is not that pain and difficulty are inherently good, but that they serve important functions in human development that cannot be easily replaced by other means. Just as physical exercise involves controlled stress that strengthens the body, psychological and moral development requires controlled challenges that strengthen character and capabilities. The key insight is that some degree of struggle and difficulty appears to be necessary for human flourishing, and that attempts to eliminate all such challenges may inadvertently eliminate opportunities for growth and development. This perspective suggests that the pursuit of comfort and ease as ultimate values may be self-defeating, not because comfort is inherently evil, but because it can become a prison that prevents individuals and societies from discovering and developing their full potential. The implications of this analysis for individual life choices are both profound and challenging. If comfort and ease can indeed weaken us while struggle and difficulty strengthen us, then many of our natural inclinations and cultural assumptions may need to be reconsidered. The tendency to seek the path of least resistance, to avoid unnecessary difficulties, to prioritize immediate pleasure over long-term benefit, and to structure our lives around the minimization of discomfort, may actually be working against our deeper interests in growth, meaning, and fulfillment. This does not mean that we should seek out suffering for its own sake, or that all forms of hardship are beneficial, but it does suggest that we might need to consciously choose challenges and difficulties that our comfortable environments no longer provide naturally. The concept of voluntary hardship emerges as a potential response to the weakening effects of excessive comfort. This involves deliberately exposing ourselves to controlled forms of challenge and difficulty in order to maintain and develop our psychological, physical, and moral capabilities. Such practices might include physical training that pushes us beyond our comfort zones, intellectual pursuits that require sustained effort and concentration, creative projects that involve risk and uncertainty, or service activities that demand sacrifice and commitment. The key is that these challenges must be genuinely difficult, not merely simulated or artificial difficulties that provide the illusion of struggle without its substance. They must involve real stakes, real effort, and real possibility of failure, in order to provide the developmental benefits that natural hardships once offered. The practice of voluntary hardship also requires wisdom and discernment in choosing which difficulties to embrace and which to avoid. Not all forms of suffering are beneficial, and some can be genuinely destructive rather than strengthening. The goal is not masochism but development, seeking out those forms of challenge that promote growth, while avoiding those that cause mere damage. This requires understanding the difference between productive and unproductive forms of difficulty, between challenges that strengthen us, and those that simply wear us down. It also requires recognizing our individual capacities and limitations, choosing challenges that are appropriately scaled to our current abilities, while still pushing us beyond our comfort zones. The philosophical framework that emerges from this analysis offers a different perspective on many contemporary debates about progress, equality, and social policy. If comfort and ease can indeed weaken us, then policies designed primarily to eliminate hardship and maximize comfort may have unintended consequences that undermine their stated goals. Educational policies that prioritize student comfort over academic challenge may actually harm students by failing to develop their intellectual capabilities. Economic policies that eliminate all forms of risk and uncertainty may create societies that are ultimately more vulnerable to disruption and change. Social policies that attempt to shield people from all forms of disappointment and failure may leave them unprepared for the inevitable difficulties that life presents. This does not mean that all welfare state policies or educational reforms are misguided. But it does suggest that we need to consider not only their immediate effects in reducing suffering but also their long-term consequences for human development and societal resilience. The analysis also has implications for how we think about inequality and excellence. If struggle and challenge are necessary for development, then some degree of inequality and competition may be not only inevitable, but beneficial for human flourishing. This does not justify extreme forms of inequality, or the systematic oppression of particular groups, but it does suggest that attempts to eliminate all forms of difference and competition may inadvertently eliminate opportunities for growth and achievement. The tension between equality and excellence becomes particularly acute in societies that have achieved high levels of prosperity and comfort, where the natural challenges that once promoted development have been largely eliminated and must be artificially recreated through institutional arrangements. Contemporary culture exhibits many of the characteristics that this analysis would predict in a society organized primarily around the pursuit of comfort and the avoidance of difficulty. Rising rates of anxiety and depression despite unprecedented material prosperity suggest that the elimination of external challenges may create internal ones. The prevalence of what might be called first-world problems, concerns that would seem trivial to people facing genuine hardship, indicates how the absence of real difficulties can lead to the magnification of minor inconveniences. The widespread sense of meaninglessness and purposelessness reported by many people in developed societies may reflect the absence of genuine challenges that could provide opportunities for growth and achievement. The cultural emphasis on self-esteem and emotional validation, rather than actual accomplishment and character development, reflects the priority given to feeling good over becoming excellent. The therapeutic culture that seeks to eliminate all forms of psychological discomfort may inadvertently eliminate opportunities for psychological growth and maturation. These trends are not necessarily permanent or irreversible, but they suggest that the analysis of how comfort breeds weakness may indeed capture something important about the dynamics of individual development and social change. The path forward suggested by this analysis involves neither a wholesale rejection of modern comforts nor a romantic return to pre-industrial hardships, but rather a more conscious and intentional approach to the role of challenge and difficulty in human life. This might involve what could be called intelligent asceticism, the deliberate choice to embrace certain forms of hardship and to reject certain forms of ease in service of larger goals of development and meaning. Such an approach would recognize that comfort and ease are valuable as means to other ends, but potentially destructive when they become ends in themselves. It would seek to preserve the genuine benefits of modern civilization, while avoiding the psychological and moral costs that can come with excessive comfort and security. This approach requires both individual and collective wisdom, the ability to distinguish between beneficial and harmful forms of challenge, to choose appropriate levels of difficulty, and to create social institutions that support human development, rather than merely human comfort. It also requires a cultural shift away from the assumption that the elimination of all struggle and difficulty is automatically good, toward a more nuanced understanding of the role that challenge plays in human flourishing. The practical applications of this philosophical framework extend across multiple domains of contemporary life, offering both personal strategies for individual development and broader principles for social organization. At the individual level, the recognition that comfort can breed weakness while challenge promotes strength suggests the need for what might be called developmental discipline, the conscious structuring of one's life to include appropriate levels of difficulty and challenge. This does not mean seeking out unnecessary suffering or rejecting all forms of comfort and convenience, but rather maintaining a balance that includes enough challenge to promote continued growth and development. Such discipline might manifest in various forms: choosing work that is demanding rather than merely comfortable, engaging in physical activities that require genuine effort and skill, pursuing intellectual interests that challenge existing knowledge and assumptions, maintaining relationships that involve real commitment and sacrifice, or undertaking creative projects that involve risk and uncertainty. The key principle is that some portion of one's life should be devoted to activities that are difficult enough to require genuine growth and development, rather than merely the application of existing skills and knowledge. The concept of anti-fragility provides another framework for understanding how to apply these insights practically. Anti-fragile systems are those that actually benefit from stress, volatility, and challenge, rather than merely surviving them. Human beings can develop anti-fragile characteristics by deliberately exposing themselves to controlled forms of stress and uncertainty that strengthen their adaptive capabilities. This might involve financial practices that build resilience, rather than maximizing immediate consumption, health practices that challenge the body's adaptive systems rather than merely avoiding discomfort, or learning practices that embrace confusion and difficulty, rather than seeking immediate understanding and clarity. The goal is to develop systems and habits that become stronger rather than weaker when faced with challenges and setbacks. Physical training provides perhaps the clearest model for how to apply the principle of beneficial challenge in a systematic way. Effective training programs expose the body to controlled forms of stress that promote adaptation and growth, while avoiding destructive forms of damage. They follow principles of progressive overload, adequate recovery, and specificity that can be applied to other domains of development. Mental training can follow similar principles, exposing the mind to increasingly difficult challenges, while providing adequate time for integration and recovery. Moral training can involve gradually taking on greater responsibilities and commitments that develop character and integrity over time. The key is to understand that development requires not just effort, but intelligent effort, challenge that is appropriately calibrated to current capacities while still pushing beyond current limitations. Educational applications of this framework might involve restructuring learning environments to include more genuine challenge and less artificial comfort. This does not mean returning to harsh or punitive approaches to education, but rather ensuring that students encounter difficulties that require genuine effort and persistence to overcome. Research on desirable difficulties in learning demonstrates that certain types of challenges, such as spacing out practice, mixing different types of problems, or requiring students to generate solutions before being shown them, actually enhance long-term learning and retention, even though they feel more difficult in the short term. Educational institutions might also need to reconsider their emphasis on student satisfaction and emotional comfort, in favor of approaches that prioritize genuine learning and character development, even when these involve temporary discomfort or frustration. Workplace applications might involve redesigning jobs and organizational structures to include more meaningful challenges and opportunities for growth. Many contemporary work environments have become so specialized and routinized that they provide little opportunity for employees to develop new capabilities or face genuine challenges. Organizations might need to consciously create, stretch assignments and challenging projects that push employees beyond their current skill levels, while providing appropriate support and feedback. This could involve rotating people through different roles, giving them responsibility for unfamiliar tasks, or involving them in problem-solving activities that require genuine creativity and innovation. The goal would be to create work environments that promote human development, rather than merely maximizing efficiency and minimizing friction. Economic and social policy applications of this framework raise more complex questions about the proper role of government and social institutions in human development. If excessive comfort and security can indeed weaken individuals and societies, then policies designed primarily to eliminate hardship and maximize comfort may need to be balanced against concerns about their effects on human development and social resilience. This does not mean abandoning social safety nets or returning to harsh forms of social Darwinism, but it might mean designing policies that encourage personal responsibility and development, alongside providing security and support. Social programs might be structured to include expectations for growth and contribution, rather than merely providing benefits. Educational policies might balance concerns about student welfare with the need to maintain academic standards and challenges. Economic policies might consider not only immediate effects on comfort and security, but also long-term consequences for innovation, productivity, and social resilience. Cultural institutions, museums, libraries, theaters, community organizations, might play a crucial role in providing opportunities for meaningful challenge and growth in societies that have largely eliminated natural sources of difficulty. These institutions could offer programs and experiences that challenge people intellectually, artistically, and socially, while providing the support and context necessary for such challenges to be beneficial rather than destructive. They could serve as spaces where people can encounter difficult ideas, complex artistic works, and demanding activities that promote development and growth. The goal would be to create what might be called cultural gymnasiums, environments specifically designed to exercise and develop human capabilities that might otherwise atrophy in excessively comfortable social conditions. The technological dimension of this challenge requires particular attention in contemporary society. Digital technologies have created unprecedented levels of convenience and comfort, while simultaneously eliminating many traditional sources of challenge and difficulty. Information is instantly available, eliminating the need for memory and research skills. GPS navigation eliminates the need for spatial awareness and navigation abilities. Social media provides constant entertainment and stimulation, reducing tolerance for solitude and boredom. Automated systems handle many tasks that once required human skill and attention. While these technologies provide genuine benefits, They may also contribute to the atrophy of human capabilities, and the development of what might be called technological dependence. A conscious approach to technology might involve choosing tools that enhance rather than replace human capabilities, maintaining practices that preserve skills that technology might otherwise eliminate, and creating regular periods of disconnection from digital systems to maintain the capacity for independent thought and action. The question of how to maintain beneficial challenge in an increasingly comfortable world ultimately requires both individual choice and collective wisdom. Individuals must take responsibility for structuring their own lives to include appropriate levels of difficulty and challenge, while society must create institutions and cultural norms that support rather than undermine human development. This is neither a simple nor an easy task, as it requires going against many natural inclinations toward ease and comfort, while avoiding the extremes of unnecessary suffering or nihilistic hardship. The goal is not to make life more difficult for its own sake, but to ensure that life includes the kinds of challenges that promote human flourishing and prevent the weakening effects of excessive comfort. Success in this endeavor requires understanding that strength and weakness, growth and decay, are not static states but ongoing processes that depend on the choices we make and the environments we create. The warning about comfort breeding weakness serves not as a counsel of despair, but as a call to consciousness, an invitation to consider more carefully how we structure our individual lives and collective institutions to promote genuine human flourishing, rather than merely immediate satisfaction.